Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ask the Expert session. We will be talking today about hybrid cloud with Azure, and I have a number of great panel speakers here to help me out. We hope everybody can join. It's early here on the West Coast and everywhere in North America. Welcome to everyone from around the world as well. So let me get into some housekeeping items first. There are a few things we need to cover. First of all, you can, of course, ask us questions. That's the whole idea. So we have great people on our chat team ready to answer questions, so do not hesitate. And what we'll do is we'll also try to answer some of these questions at the end of the session. We have a couple of items that I want to ask to our panelists first. On the next slide, you'll see that we would like to ask you to please behave. I'm sure you know what to do. You've done this before, so there's a code of conduct. We will take a quick look at it, but obviously we want to keep this a friendly and more importantly, a session for you, a session where you can ask questions and get some answers. So at this time, I'd like to show you what I call our rogues gallery, our speakers today, and I'm actually going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. We may have to wait a couple of minutes for Brian, who has been trying to log in, but let's just get started. And let me first of all start with a question to each of our panelists with really, first statement, which is obviously we're not doing this live. We're doing this in person. We're doing this remote. So the past few months have been a bit odd, to say the least. So looking at this, I'm also thinking, well, hang on, what have I learned in the past few months about myself, or what new skills have I developed? So I'm going to ask each of our speakers to please introduce themselves, tell us what new skill they have developed in the past few months, and also tell us what they do and who they work for. So we're going to start with Vidya. Vidya, please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Christoph, and hello, everyone. I'm Vidya Shankaran, the Field CTO for Cloud and Emerging Technology Solutions at Commvault. I've been with Commvault for 5 years now. So that's a very relevant question there, Christoph. Indeed, shelter in place or lockdown was a very strange set of events that we are seeing in our lifetime today. And as far as I was concerned, it was more about spending quality time with family and, of course, honing culinary skills. But it turned out to be more like experimenting on the family at that point in time. But here as well, it was all about unlearning and learning. And now I think I can proudly say I can prepare traditional Indian recipes the modern way.
Excellent. This is great news. Actually, we'll when possible, I'd love to try some of these out with you. It's actually one of my favorite foods.
Sure.
Good. So now, Saurabh, same question. What have you learned about yourself or new skill, and tell us about what you do.
Thank you, Christoph, and thank you everyone for joining this panel, and welcome to all our viewers who are logging in from various places in the world to Microsoft Ignite. I'm Saurabh Sen Sharma. I'm a senior program manager with the Azure Storage product team, and I work with our great and awesome partners in the backup, archive, and DR space. And I'm really excited to be here with Commvault, who is one of our very awesome partners for Azure. When it comes to the question that Christoph asked, I think, I've had a transformative experience. I had to travel from India to the US to this new team in the middle of the pandemic. And so really the flight that I took had only 90 passengers on it. The new skill, I think, I would do a +1 to what Vidya said. I think I have been officially domesticated, which means that now I can cook, I can wash dishes, I can basically iron my own clothes. I used to do that, but I think now it's a full-time profession for me. And I think the best thing that has happened is I've gone from, ordering in and dining out to cooking in and working out. So hopefully I look better in a few months from now. And I think that's really been a transformative experience. Of course, it's been tough for everybody. And I think we are all doing a great job and technology is enabling us. And I'm really happy that we all are here talking to each other today. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. Randy, it is your turn now to answer this question. Tell us about something you've learned about yourself, new skills, and of course, what you do.
Christoph, thank you. Randy Domino, I'm a VP CTO for our Microsoft practice and solutions, and initiated our partnership with Microsoft and have been with Commvault for 26 years. Welcome everyone from around the world. First things first, everyone stay safe as we modify our day-to-day activity as a result of COVID. And I guess the things I said learned would probably be, aside from cooking and having children that are a little older, appreciating them, having them around a little bit more has been one benefit of the last 6 or 7 months. On a personal note, just selfishly, I'm a team sports guy, as you can tell by the picture up on the screen, and probably reacquiring an enjoyment for bicycle riding and playing golf might be one of the outcomes of COVID as we modify our day-to-day activity. So.
All right, excellent. So I don't know that Brian has joined us quite yet, so we'll pass on the introductions for now. But I'd like to first get started with a few technology questions, obviously. The first question I think will be for you, Vidya. I've been obviously looking at Azure. It is sometimes a first step to the cloud, but anything sounds great until you start adding at scale to any proposition or anything you say, right, in IT. So if you think about deployments of tens or hundreds or even thousands of VMs, what can you tell us? What has been your experience? What have you seen? And what recommendations would you have?
Perfect. You got that right, Jab. Thank you. Yes, that's a great question to begin with, Christoph. And definitely what we've seen is a lot of our customers are making a very conscious decision towards identifying the right cloud storage tier as they start making the move to cloud. So it begins with assessing your workloads, finding the right fitment of the cloud storage tier. So there are certain critical points, certain salient features that they need to consider while making that choice. It begins with making sure that it is the most cost optimal choice basis the retention of data in the cloud. And of course, whether it is performance optimal as well, basis the kind of use cases that you're looking to drive with that data set in the cloud. So in other words, like if you were to summarize those 2 points, it's all about placing the right data in the right storage location, resulting in the right kind of spend to be associated with it. So our customers are actually using Commvault to wrap their applications and file system data sets to store and sync it to cloud storage services. And this is all secure, right? And this data set is now readily available from cloud storage to cater to various use cases like disaster recovery, compliance, dev test use cases with data masking on top of it as needed. And now that you have this ready to use active data set in the cloud, you can actually go ahead and perform on-demand or scheduled recovery of hundreds or even thousands of VMs all at once into Azure. So what you're doing now is essentially lifting and shifting your business, which was earlier on premises, moving it into the cloud. So this also comes built in with the capability to perform application validation, because at every point in time, you need to ensure that the recovered data, whatever you have recovered back into cloud from your backup repository, is valid and the VM that you have restored is business ready. So all of this is extremely instrumental in the way customers are using Commvault to make that movement to the cloud. And definitely scale is one of the key points. And needless to say, as we progress through this discussion, scale and addressing complexity that comes with it will be points of discussion as well.
Well, thank you, Vidya. And you brought up a couple of interesting points. Obviously, cost, always something to worry about, but you also brought up security and the fact that obviously you need scale and security. So Saurabh, actually, I wanted to maybe turn over to you and ask you this question. What, from your perspective, do you see and what can you do to help customers and users with this notion of scale plus security combined with Commvault?
Yeah, I think that's a great follow-up question, Christoph. And I think Vidya just beautifully sort of summarized some of the key scale aspects, of what customers can do with Commvault and Azure. Specifically speaking about Azure, I think, as far as Azure storage goes, which is basically, the endpoint for data protection, there is infinite scale that Azure offers, whether it comes to storing data on Azure storage or storing it globally across various regions. But it doesn't end there. There also is a very, very important aspect of defining scale and growing in the right tier of storage. So we do offer cool, hot, and archive tiers based on the performance requirements, as well as the scalability requirements of how data needs to be managed across various applications. Also, there is reserved capacity pricing, which allows you to manage that scale in a cost-effective manner. So you can provision storage in increments of 100 terabytes up to even 10 petabytes for over 3 years, and you get like 40% savings on your overall spend for storage. And the best part is Commvault works with all of these tiers and can perform combined tiering with a mixture of hot and archive, or cool and archive. And I think that's something that provides the easy onboarding for customers and allows them to move petabytes of data, whether it's offline mechanisms like Databox, which Azure offers, or online mechanisms such as the Express Route, or even Express Route Direct Local, right, which allows you to achieve that global scale without actually spending any fee for egress. When it comes to security, I think security is sort of foundational when it comes to Azure, and we follow something called defense in depth, which is your data is not the only thing that is secure. The security actually extends all the way from your data to even physical security, which is every single rack at the data center. All of those are secured by the Azure infrastructure platform. As far as data goes, you have options starting from encryption to Azure Active Directory to defining IAM roles and even RBAC. As far as securing data from malicious attacks goes, there is capability, for example, soft delete and versioning built into Azure storage, and Commvault integrates with that as well as immutability, which is a key component of security against ransomware. So I think with that, I would like sum up, when it comes to scale and security, Azure has the plethora of options as well as capabilities that users can take advantage of, especially with Commvault and Azure.
Well, thank you, Saurabh. And candidly, I didn't know there were so many capabilities. I knew of a few of them. This is actually super important, as we know, especially in the current environment. We've actually seen from our research here at ESG an accumulation of attacks and an acceleration, I should say, of attacks from a cyber standpoint. So let's maybe take now a slightly different prism, and with your help, Randy, I'd like to talk about partnership and customer benefits. 20 years ago, you built the Commvault infrastructure in partnership with Microsoft. So now, as you look at Azure as your obviously key partner for a number of services that Commvault is providing in for yourself as an organization, what can you tell us about maybe some recommendations you have from that partnership standpoint, and also what type of benefits have you been able to reap from the relationship over time?
Christoph, that's an excellent question. Thank you for it. And my initial thought is confidence and customer confidence. Commvault runs our business on Microsoft. Microsoft uses Commvault in some very strategic large areas, as Saurabh can reinforce, and that immediate ability to scale at very large data sets inspires confidence for our customers that both Commvault and Microsoft have done this before. I don't think there are many partners that could say they've supported Microsoft Cloud as strategically as Commvault has for over 10 years. And Saurabh will immediately say, well, Azure's only been out for 8, but we supported it with Microsoft even when it was called Microsoft Cloud Services before the term Azure came about. So that joint intense usage leads to best practice guidance that only Commvault and Microsoft can offer our customers, first and foremost. Second, I think personally, I'm experiencing a deja vu moment. When I led the decision to build Commvault on Microsoft's infrastructure 20 years ago, which initiated the partnership, we used the Microsoft platform to enable a heterogeneous data management solution so customers can use a single best-of-breed solution on top of Microsoft. And as the digital transformation occurs, Microsoft's offering of that same consistent infrastructure on Azure enables us to have the benefit of the same exact tested, scalable, secure Commvault solution that ran on-prem is the same exact solution that runs in Azure or even Azure Stack. That enables us with our customers to put Commvault closest to the data for optimal and efficient performance, and that is unique. There's not an Azure version of Commvault versus an on-prem hybrid version. It's the same solution, so customers don't have to learn anything new. They can take advantage of all of our features. And to restate one of Saurabh's points, one of the things I'm seeing a lot of trending is immutable. And for some of the folks who may not be Azure storage folks, that is Microsoft's version of Worm. And we see a lot of that in financial services, public sector, and governments on the critical need for 3, 5, 7, 21-year retention. And it's just another capability that for Commvault is seamless, whether that's on-prem data or data managed in Azure. That consistent infrastructure that Microsoft offers gives our customers and Commvault a very unique advantage.
Well, thank you, Randy. So definitely, consistency, similarity of experience. I mean, that goes directly to operational efficiency. But I like also the comments you made on Worm and immutability, because as we know, compliance is not an option, and Worm and compliance go hand in hand in most cases. But also great way to also improve the infrastructure against attacks from outside sources. So. Very important point to be made here. I'd like to ask the panel a quick question. It's a bit of a trick question because I know the answer. As you know, at ESG, we do research and we have been focused on recently on data protection in the cloud, to the cloud, etc. And so here's my trick question. We talked to a number of IT professionals and we asked them, what do you do in terms of Office 365, kind of working our way up to SaaS here, and how do you protect Office 365? And more importantly, I would like to ask you this question. How many do you think told us, in percentage, how many do you think told us that they did not have a backup and recovery solution for Office 365? So I'm going to start with you, Vidya. What number would you give me? What percentage? You may be on mute.
Yeah, so basis our discussions with customers, what we've seen is typically 1 out of every 4 customers seem to believe that O365 either does not need backup or do not perform backups. So I would peg it at probably 25%.
Okay, thank you. Saurabh, it is same question for you. What would you guess or evaluate based on your interactions?
I would typically, like we've seen with the shared responsibility model, I think SaaS is where most customers feel they do not need data protection. I would actually peg that number a little higher to about 55 to 60%. Okay,
thank you. And Randy, what would be your bet?
This is one of my favorite topics to discuss, so I spent a little more time here. So I'll probably go with Saurabh in that 55 to maybe 75% number. And I think we have to get a clearer definition of, I totally respect and appreciate O365's high availability, but high availability is not protection. It's not long-term retention. And when we start to talk about backup or collecting data, that opens up another topic, which we can get to in a little bit, which is e-discovery and compliance that includes the O365 content for a single search across the enterprise. So I think just on the backup from a polling, maybe I'd go in that a little higher, 55 to maybe 67% of people.
Okay, so thank you. So I would say, Vidya, you win because you're the closest. The number of people who said that they do not have any tools for 365 was actually, so 0 tools was 27%. However, there was another probably 25-30% who said, well, look, we use some of the native tools. So that's an answer that's kind of not very, very clear, right? The other thing I want to point out is about 33% when it came to SaaS in general said that they didn't think they needed backup. And to your point, Randy, and this is closer to that sort of 50, 60%, a lot of people do not really understand SLAs. And I think it's very important to not conflate the high availability of the service, which makes you so comfortable that you think you don't need a backup, with the fact that you are always responsible for your data, to your point, Randy, and data is yours. It doesn't matter where it lives. As an end user or organization, it is your responsibility. And of course, compliance is a pretty important topic. What I'd like to do now is maybe switch gears and as we are starting to get more and more questions, and we'll take a couple of minutes for those, maybe ask each of you to quickly give us your sort of top 3 recommendations for our listeners today and our viewers today. So Vidya, we're going to start with you. What would you have? What would be your top 3 recommendations as they think about this hybrid world that we live in and really working with Azure? And if you don't mind, maybe place a little bit of prism on data protection.
Sure. So that's definitely one of the key asks from a lot of our customers. So the recommendation typically starts with understanding that not all data sets that a customer has in their IT landscape deserves the same kind of treatment or the same kind of stringent SLAs. So categorizing the applications and data sets based on business criticality, and then associating that with the right governance and controls on top to manage the data underneath is the most important first step, or the first important recommendation to begin with. Now, taking that point and modeling the cost upfront. So you'd be surprised the tremendous scope for cost optimization just by categorizing those applications based on business criticality, because that gives you a sense of the kind of resources that you would need to invest in and deploy for delivering the appropriate RPO, RTO for your application. And the third point, something that we've been hearing a lot of customers state as well, is that hybrid has actually introduced a degree of complexity today that did not exist, or they did not experience even 2 years ago. So essentially what we realize is that customers need a solution that bridges the data management chasm with a single pane of glass, and a tool that embraces the elastic nature of cloud. So essentially what we are looking for customers to adapt and adopt is a platform that grows as their data sets grow and can be right-sized as the data growth patterns change. So basically, what you're looking for from a tool like Commvault is the ability to auto-scale and power manage your infrastructure that is running in the cloud, because when you're paying by the drip, every penny counts.
Absolutely, very well said. Saurabh, what would be your top 3 recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Christoph. And I think the top 3, the first one would start with, reviewing the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure, which definitely provides very, very prescriptive guidance on how to essentially factor some of the points that Vidya talked about. How do you right size? How do you think about, what should go to the cloud, what should stay on premises? The second is more with regards to data protection, which is to identify your most mission critical applications and work with your legal and compliance team to figure out what the SLAs on backup and recovery should look like and how long things need to be retained on premises versus on the cloud. The last one is actually a combined one, which is definitely review our new service, Azure Arc, for being able to achieve that single pane of glass management across your cloud and on-premises infrastructure, as well as your infrastructure in other clouds. It's that single pane of glass management interface. And definitely do watch Erin Chappell's session on hybrid cloud, as well as hybrid management with Azure, which has been showcased as part of Ignite. And that is something that I think would provide a very, very good arsenal of tools to our customers to be able to understand how they should think about hybrid, what are some of the key metrics and some of the key goals they should try to achieve. And not to forget, there is a lot of agility that both Commvault and Azure provide in terms of data protection. So do take advantage of those resources, whether it comes to leveraging the various networking options that are there offline or online to move your large data sets to the cloud, or for that matter, the security options that Commvault and Azure provide together. And I do see Brian is actually on the call, which I just saw from I think the preview. So Brian, why don't you go next and tell us what your top 3 are?
Well, yeah, thank you, Brian, for joining us. Finally, you made it. So we'd like to introduce you very quickly. We have a few minutes, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch it up. I'd like to also get Randy's perspective on top 3 recommendations. But since we have you, Brian, could you just introduce yourself real quick? Tell us who you are, and give us your top 3 recommendations. Based on what we have discussed in preparing this session.
All right.
Well, okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for showing up. So, Randy, you're next, okay. And then that will probably take us to the end of the session.
So I'll give 3 quickly. First and foremost, experience. Work with partners, work with vendors who have experience in actually doing and delivering and using the technologies themselves. It's such a differentiator and spawns confidence. 2, where can you reduce the number of technologies used to meet the needs you have? We're spoiled at Commvault. We offer a data management solution that happens to do backup and recovery very well. When I introduce folks to Commvault, the first demonstration I do involves migration, which is a critical component of data management and really backup. And I'll take we joked about how long I've been at Commvault, so I take an email from my mailbox that was deleted 20 years ago, and I restore it to my post-migrated Office 365 mailbox in about 6 seconds from Saurabh's Azure US East 2 data center. All right, that is data management. That includes backup and recovery, and that is what a differentiator that the Microsoft Azure infrastructure enables Commvault to offer to our customers. And third, moving the data efficiently into Azure is something we do well. Indexing it is extremely unique. When you index it, including Office 365, that enables us to have our customers have an O365 e-discovery search solution that includes the rest of the enterprise's hybrid data. Plus, what Saurabh we didn't get a chance to touch to is, we're not the AI solution. We're not the software that cures cancer, but we identify the correct data and move it to Azure efficiently, such that the Microsoft AI tools can fully take advantage of it. So we want to make our customers and accelerate their AI readiness, move data and identify it properly from various heterogeneous locations, move it into Azure so Saurabh's capabilities on the AI side can enable our customers to do something with their second most vital asset, which is their data. First being the humans, second being the data.
Well, thank you, Randy. I think you make a good point. There is, no data reuse without good compliance and categorization, collection, and analysis up front. So that's it's important to be able to do all of these things. This is intelligent data management, really, when you think about it. So we have 1 minute. One quick question for you, Randy, that came from our audience. Is there a workload that you should actually never take to the cloud? It's a trick question, clearly.
It's a trick question. There is one that I would have said until I've worked with Saurabh over the past 2 weeks. The initial response I would have said was, for about 8 or 9 years, Commvault has supported IBM's AS400 iSeries, okay. And that would be one. But we've learned of a joint partner now that is actually came to Commvault for extended backup and recovery of AS400 that is hosted from Azure data centers. So I would have that would have been the default reflex response answer until literally a couple of weeks ago, which really shows how much, I think, and to Rob follow up, how much Azure has become the foundation for people and infrastructure people to use, where there are now, I've learned, at least 100 customers running AS400, needing a backup solution, but running an AS400 out of Azure, which to me was, that's amazing.
That's pretty amazing, and I think that's all we have time for today. But that was a great answer. I did not expect this one. Very, very nicely done, and great job on the AS400. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists, and please, stay tuned. If you have questions, we'll answer them. And again, thank you so much for joining us from wherever you are joining us today around the world.
Christoph, thank you. Great job.
Thank you.